Hello, and welcome to this new episode of Alive and Teaching. What if I told you that things were definitely better before? I'm quite sure that this sounds familiar to you because every generation says this. My parents used to tell me that. I'm quite sure that your parents used to tell you that. And our students' parents must have heard that, if not from their parents, also from their teachers. And at least they tend to hear it from me as a teacher. Not as a way to criticize them necessarily, but just to make them aware of the fact that change happens to be regularly on the way. And actually, I think that we can agree on the fact that when it comes to our students and the young generations that we see there, there is a dramatic change that we can even witness year after year, if not to say sometimes semester after semester. So the thing is that this change is there, but at the same time, should we fight it or should we accept it and maybe deal with it? Obviously, my option or my take on this is that we would be better inspired by understanding that this change is drastic, by also identifying the reasons how we could try and accompany that change in a way that will make it easier for us to deal with this situation, but also that will be constructive for the students in themselves. Let's go. So maybe first of all, it's important for me to clarify the perspective that I am talking from, meaning that I am quite aware that cultural aspects happen to have their importance when it comes to the worldwide phenomena related to education, and the fact that I am conditioned by a series of parameters. Of course, my education, when it comes to a home, when it comes to my parents, has had an influence on me. At the same time, the environment that I had when I went to primary school, secondary school, up to university, all of this had an importance. And so on this, I think it is important to clarify first that the environment that I've been evolving through is based on the French education system. And this brings some parameters that are particular, I would say, because most of what I've been taught has been done through lecturing, has been done also through knowing the boundaries that I had to respect and that I had to keep towards professors. Then the other aspect that is important for me to mention here is that from the perspective that I'm talking about today, I happen not to be in the French education system anymore. I've taught in French universities and schools, different schools of political science, of business, but at the same time, I am engaged now in an American environment, meaning an American university where I have an audience, I have students that happen to represent, I think, the parameters and the culture that we have from the United States. It does not mean that this is incompatible with understanding other trends, because I think that all young generations are generations that are evolving in a way that is similar up to a certain extent. But then, of course, what I mean to say there is that I am quite aware that maybe some cultural aspects related to other parts of the world may not, I would say, identify entirely to what I will be talking about. But I will still be putting or mentioning points here that I think reflect something that we can have, that we can consider to be present more or less mainstream. Talking about our students, what is it that has actually changed? Well, I think that there are many things that we see changing in them. We don't necessarily recognize ourselves in what we see in front of us. Their habits have definitely changed. There would be many things to say about that, but I would tell you that one of the things that strikes me, for example, is the limited distance that students put towards me as a professor compared to what I used to do towards my own professors. There were boundaries, they were virtually present, there was no, I would say, no proximity, no very close relationship towards the professors, and this is something that has changed today to a great extent. There is still respect that is put there, but at the same time, there is a tendency, I would say, for many students to come and talk to you almost as if you were their mate that they meet on a regular basis in the cafeteria on the campus. Then their expectations also happen to be different, meaning that the students feel as if they were entitled at the end of the day to having this, having that, to having things given to them almost in an automatic way. One example that I can think of here is how they expect all what they have to learn to be given to them in a concise way, in a summarized way, and my feeling is that this is a way for them to feel that they are being given things in a straightforward way. Because there is another component that is definitely where I feel that there is a gap between the generation that I'm talking about and the one that I come from, and it is what I've been used to do on a regular basis, reading books. I'm not sure of how many students end up reading books today. They're digital, they're more connected to the quick things that they find on the internet, and I think even that the concentration time has changed. Many studies show us that. So we are definitely facing students that have different expectations. And since I just mentioned entitlement, yes, there is a feeling of entitlement, I would say, that comes from many students. I'm not saying that they would be disrespectful towards professors necessarily. Some happen to be a bit, but I would say that in general, the majority that I see is a majority that tends to, at the same time, respect you as a professor and know that they have to talk to you, taking into consideration some parameters that make you not their friend necessarily. But at the same time, the feeling of entitlement happens to be there, meaning that they expect the A grades to come to them or to be attributed to them very, very easily, very straightforwardly. I'm not sure that I always feel that there is an effort that has to be provided and some conditions that have to be provided and to be present there before they get this grade that they expect there. So why so? And I think that this is where maybe this feeling of entitlement that we feel in the case of many students brings us a key question, which is the following: have we overprotected students? Have we nannied students too much? If I look at my environment, if I look at students that are around, and even at some of the guidelines that are given to us as teachers when it comes to definitely caring about students, I would say that, yeah, to a great extent, we are protecting students maybe more than we should do. Not that we shouldn't be protecting them, or not that we shouldn't be there for them. Of course we need to be, but this comes also at the price, or at the condition more precisely, of making them understand that they have their own responsibilities at the same time. But without trying to justify necessarily what the average young student would be claiming today, I would still consider that there are some conditions, factors, parameters to take into account there to understand better the phenomenon. Let us not forget that the world that these students are growing up in is as destabilizing for them as it is for me personally, meaning that it is a world that goes accelerating. I always give this example to my students of a student of mine that some years ago, she was in her 20 something, was looking at me and telling me, can I say something? I say, yeah, of course, go for it. And she was saying, the world goes in a so accelerated way that I feel lost. I feel that I can't catch up on things. And this is where I told her, okay, you're 20 years old and you're saying that. What do I say? So what I mean here is that the world is accelerating, and since it is accelerating, it is also bringing a feeling of uncertainty and making them overwhelmed. And this is something that is important to understand. Add to this that this generation has gone through COVID. has gone through the lockdown, has gone through conditions where they couldn't go out necessarily. They had to be more connected even to one other aspect that is also key to understanding them, which is their constant connection to the screens. There is this dependency, there is this addiction to screens that is conditioning also their mind and the way they are looking at perspectives. If we add to this the fact that I am not sure that all parents today know how to set limits to their children, this is where we end up with having a generation that definitely is fragile, that needs attention seeking, and also that expects a kind of, I would say, VIP treatment. So what I'm saying there is that all of this did not happen by accident. Let us not forget that when it comes to Gen Z, we tend to talk about the I generation, the generation that is connected to the internet, to all these tools that we have around. But at the same time, when it comes to the generation that comes after Gen Z, meaning what we call Generation Alpha or Gen A, we're talking about the glass generation, meaning the generation that is fragile, that has to be handled with care. So this is what we're facing today, and the question maybe is, should we worry about it, or should we remain hopeful? I am not sure that we are facing generations that will take it to a dimension that will be catastrophic, let's say. No, I remain hopeful. I see the potential that I have in the case of the majority of my students, to be honest, but I also see that in order for me to foster these skills and these capacities that they have, one of the conditions for it is just to understand that our way of dealing with them and our way even of teaching and of sending messages has to be adapted to a large extent. And this is something that have been mentioned in episodes before, and that I will be also mentioning in some of the coming episodes. But maybe the thing that could worry me is that we could be facing part of today's students as students that would be with a limited capacity of resilience, meaning that my generation and the generation that came after, I think, that has been used to facing difficulties in life and knowing that difficulties have to be overcome by knowing how to deal with them, by finding the ways to deal with them, and by believing that we can overcome them. Maybe the degree of faith when it comes to, yes, I can overcome this challenge that I have in front, maybe a bit more, I would say, questionable when it comes to some of the cases that I see or that we can see around. But the good news there is that students, I think, keep curious. They learn less through books maybe that they learn through internet, through videos. I see them more caught by videos that are projected in class than by references that would be projected there or readings that would be given to them beforehand, though I think I found a way to get them to being prepared when they come there. But at the same time, if I say I remain hopeful, that's because I think that the generations today keep their curiosity. They also keep a capacity of adapting if one not only insists on them, but at the same time tells them, okay, this is a condition for your success, and yes, you can do it. Yes, you're capable of doing it. And I see also that they're young, so they have lots of energy. And this is something that definitely gets them prepared, maybe not to the world that we've been going through, but to the world that they are going through. So this is where maybe they could even be more adapted to what they have around, to maybe people of my generation that feel that this change has been drastic. So the end point here is to say that I think that there is definitely a way for us and these young generations to find the point of connection, and there are many ways to doing it and to exploring that, as we will be witnessing, of course, over the episodes that will be on the way. Thank you very much for watching this video podcast or listening to it, and I hope to see you very soon.